Hi, everyone. I am so sorry that we've had these technical difficulties, that things have been a little delayed. I had this great speech that I had prepared in which I just told all of you that Dorothy Allison and Sandra Cisneros are my superheroes. They're the two writers that just spoke my truth before I even knew what my truth was. But I'm going to cut it short. And you're free to email me at the Miami Book Fair, where I am the programs director, and I'm happy to talk about their books and how much they've always meant to me. So it's an incredible honor to bring up onto our virtual stage Sandra Cisneros and Dorothy Allison to have a conversation that I feel will break the internet if we haven't broken it already with our technical difficulties. So thank you all, Dorothy
Hey,
and Sandra.
oh,
Thank
good.
you. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your gracious patience.
Hello.
Hi.
I can hear you both on my phone and on my screen. So are you working? Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
I can hear you better if you hold your phone up to your ear. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I love this little book. I love the easygoing nature of it. I love the whole sense of you, young in Paris with friends. I assume that there's some name changing going on in there, but it was so. It reminded me of when I was young and living in New York and running around and trying to keep up with everything and trying to write and be semi sane, which is, I never got to quite sane, but semi. It's that kind of easygoing exchange that you're having with all of these people that's wonderful.
Well, Dorothy, first I have to say that, I started my life as a poet like you, and the
Mm.
most a poet can hope for is the respect and recognition from the writers you admire. And you are there on the top five. So I have to tell you what an honor it is that you accepted to do this tonight, especially tonight while there's fires raging near you. And I'm just so grateful to hear those words of praise coming from you, because that, like, the highest thing a writer can receive is words of praise from the writer that they admire and they want to write like. Thank you.
You're going to make me cry. Don't do
It's
that.
true.
Do you remember when I was sleeping in your bed and chasing chickens and hanging out next to the river?
Yeah. I put you in the guest room. You were really tired. And I said, Here,
Ah,
go in here, lie down, and closed the door and left you there. I don't remember the chickens, but I remember the river and just
the
so
chickens were
excited.
next door.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so excited to have you come to Macondo. It's one of the great highlights of my memories of my workshop when we did shows at the Jumpstart was the show we did with you. And I played a labor organizer. Remember that? I had to
Yes,
have
and
wear I
you
had to wear
definitely
dress
qualify.
really butch, and I had this microphone. I said, "Who do we want?" And the audience would yell, "Dorothy! When do we want her? Now!" And we did it 3 times, and then you came out. It was so cool.
It was great. I don't know about, it looks like some people are having trouble hearing. I'm hearing you both on screen and on my phone. Um,
Oh,
but we'll do it. It's all right. We're managing.
all right. Well, should I speak up? Does that help?
I don't think it's about volume. I think it's about, I don't know what it's about. I'm not a computer literate person.
Me
I
neither.
stagger forward.
Yeah, I'm we're having all kinds of. Well, is this being recorded? That's the question. Is this
I
being
would trust
recorded?
that Books and Books is recording it.
Yes, so in case anyone who's here tonight and not getting a chance to hear it properly, and even you and I, so that we'll be able to record this, we hope, right?
Yes. I want you to tell me something about this book. I want to know what prompted you to pull this out and publish it now.
Well, I always loved this story. I thought this was like one of my better short stories, but when I started it, I was writing all the collection of that became Woman Hollering Creek in the early 90s. So I had lived the story when I was in my late 20s, And I started writing it 10 years later. I tried to put it in the collection of Woman Hollering Creek, and it didn't fit for a couple of reasons. One, thematically, it's in Paris. And the
Yeah.
other thing is that I didn't have the ending. I didn't have the middle section with the letters, and I didn't have the ending. Maybe I didn't have the Chicago part in the beginning either. I can't remember, but it was just the Paris part. And, I knew I couldn't finish it, and I had other projects I had to get to, like, finish writing the never ending novel. And then people in my life died. My father died, my mother died. And of course, you want to respond to that in poetry. And, then I had a book of essays. Then I moved to another country. So I was busy. But I always loved this story. It just was problematic. It was one of those, I'm sure you have those in your dead end files, stories you love that you don't know how to finish. And it needed time, is what it needed.
I understand that. Because we had to pack everything up to evacuate last fall, and we are still packed up, ready to run. I'm astonished by how many boxes of manuscripts I have, of things that I never quite got back to. I know exactly how you feel, and you always think, "Oh, I'll get to that." I'm 72. I'm not sure I'm going to get to all that.
Well, you know what happened when I moved here, Dorothy? I had to give up my boxes of notebooks and unfinished and old computers and files and things like that were, that I always meant to go back to. So there's things in my archives at Texas State that probably is unfinished work I might have gone back to. But when you move, you have to do a lot of house cleaning. And it allowed me to be my own executor and to say, okay, I've got to touch every single thing I own and be my own executor and decide, okay, what's coming with me to this new chapter of my life and what am I letting go? That was hard.
I had to do something similar. I sold my papers to Duke University to pay for my son's college education. Where he dropped out a little. Never mind.
What?
Children, never mind. But it's that same kind of thing, the discovery of how much material. We've lived here for 30 years. We have a barn. Let me tell you, that barn was full of paper, but now it's all at Duke University.
But aren't you glad it's at Duke?
Yeah.
And not
in
that barn?
Yeah.
I'm glad. Yeah. I'm glad it's there. That's always the thing I worried about. I had to beg my friends who had letters of mine or photos or manuscripts that I had sent them to please let me buy it. Don't leave it in a drawer or an attic or a storage unit in California or Florida, because the elements could come and whisk it away. So this past year I was collecting items. So not only am I become my own executor, I'm my own archivist too, collecting all these materials for posterity.
And this book, Martita, how did you decide how to assemble this? And
it had its beauty sleep. It was in the storage for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think moving into a house, at this house here where I live in Mexico, allowed me to go back to unfinished projects I loved that I wanted to get back to. I wanted to unlatch myself, disconnect, that's the word I'm looking for, from, foundation work that I'd been doing in Texas and return to my own writing. So coming back, I don't know how Chicago slipped back in there. I'm surprised at how much of Chicago is still in me. And of course, my father's in there. My mom is in there. So there's lots of parts of my life that are in there. But then there are some things that Karina says and does that is not my life. That it started taking a diverging from my own life. And I don't want to give it away to the readers who haven't gotten to the end, but you'll know when you get to the end, it's not my life story. But it began from a real place, a real memory that I took, real women that I met. I combined several women that I met, because I met all kinds of kind women in different countries when I was traveling who took me in, helped me, And I just kind of telescoped them to Martita and Paula.
It really does hold together, though. It does create the sense of that. Well, I think of it as a baby writer coming into a sense of herself. And that really, I loved that side of it, that whole feel of that. And that you have these exchange with other people. But honey, when I was a girl, my mother told me that I would either grow up to be a famous thief or a famous something artist, she said, because I could not keep my stories straight. Because I
Well,
would
don't
tell a
you think
story
that
one way, and change
a
it.
storyteller is a kind of story thief? Don't you think we
Yes,
listen?
yes.
I ask now, especially other writers, can I have that? When they
No,
tell me something, can I have that? Because most of the times you have to ask permission. Other writers might be thinking of using it, no?
better to ask. I used to work at Poets and Writers years ago, and we would have these conversations in the information zone. And this young man would always fling his arms into the air and yell, "I've got that. That's mine." Never mind that someone else in the room said it. And we're like, "Son, you are a fool."
Well, I'm moving because I'm sitting right in the evening sun. The sun is setting, so I'm trying to get
I
out of
see
its
it.
shadow. But one of the things I learned with the years, you probably know this, is we could all write about the same event and not write about it the same way. So we don't have to be
Yeah.
stingy with our stories. It doesn't matter if we all if we witnessed the same story. It wouldn't come out the same way if we all wrote about it. So, you know, it's fine. There's plenty for everybody. Don't you
Fortunately,
think?
this is something I learned long ago. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, my sister's versions of our childhood, not the same thing. No,
Right.
even the same event. My sister has a reasonable exclamation for why she hit me in the head with a hammer. I didn't think it was reasonable.
Well, anyway, I think the story did come from real memory. I know people are going to say, "Is this happened to you?" All the humiliating parts of the story happened to me,
Yeah.
but not all of the trauma. Because I don't know about you, but I found that women, especially when we meet each other, sometimes in short uh, moments and in short periods of our lives, are very open to telling you things and
Yeah.
sharing intimate moments. And I found that when I was traveling, that I got close to women quickly because of the stories they shared of abuse or assaults or pain or traumatic events they couldn't share with anyone. Maybe they could share them
Or
with me
shame.
because I was only
Always
passing.
shame.
Yeah, I was passing through, so I wasn't going to tell anybody. So you become this therapist for them because they know you don't live there, you're going to leave. Plus they were in some transitory place, or they were going through divorces, or they were going through trying to find a job. All the women I met had intriguing stories to share with me, and maybe because I was willing to listen.
I think
I don't
that's a
know.
lot of it. We all
Yeah.
want an audience, especially an
Yeah.
audience that understands. And when
Yes.
people know your work, they know you understand.
Well, at that time, nobody knew my work. I had just finished House on Mango Street a couple days before I got to Paris, so I don't think anybody knew my work. But, I always wanted to write about this period of my life. I was hanging out with women my age and women younger. And I think
Yeah.
that's why I latched on to a younger persona because I was about, almost 30. And some of the women I was hanging around with were like 10 years younger. Um, they reminded me of me. So I guess I'm everybody and I'm no one in the story. Right?
That's how it works, girl. That's how it
Mm.
works. And we're
Yeah,
never fully ourselves, or rarely fully ourselves on the page. We always use one
that's right.
piece of ourselves.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
What are you working on now? Can I ask, or is it?
Yeah, you can. I just finished, and you're gonna roar because you have been behind me trying to get me to finish my next book of poetry.
Oh, thank God. Good,
Yes.
good.
That's why I had your book of poetry on my bedside. They had
Oh,
just asked me what books I had on my bedside. I'd buy the book, and your book was there because I read lots of poetry when I'm writing poetry, and I love your poetry because your poetry makes me run for my pen.
I understand. I have the same response to Joy Harjo. I was reading her last
Joy
night.
Harjo, exactly. She's on my bedside too.
Yeah, she's got a
But you're
couple of
always telling me, you're
anthologies.
always scolding me and say, finish your poetry. And I did.
Yes,
Yeah, so it'll be out next fall.
good, good. What's it going to be called?
It's called Woman Without Shame.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, I think of you especially, with this collection because you and Joy and other writers who I love so much, you're the ones that Jan Beatty, writers like you make me run for my pen, inspire me to write about things I didn't know it was possible to write about. So just know that you're one of the madrinas, the godmothers of this book of poetry.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that, and I just love how fearless you can be on the page.
Well, you
Did
too.
anybody have questions? I mean, I didn't know. Um, well, surely if they have a question, they'll ask it.
Okay, there's some things on this chat room. Oh,
Yeah,
someone said they translated my book to Mujeres sin space vergüenza. Yes, that's exactly. It's not a mujer sin vergüenza. It's a mujer sin vergüenza. It's very different, and that's what the book is about and the poetry is about. Okay, now somebody's saying they're enjoying the telethon Zoom. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that. It's very kind. And other people, I'm see if there's any questions out there. Do you have any questions, you all? Oh, someone said a mujer can leave Chicago, but Chicago never leaves them. Mujer, so true. Okay, can you talk about why you published this in dual languages in the same book? Well, that's a good question because I forgot to
Wonderful.
mention the important thing that, you can flip the book and it's
Yes, yes.
Martita, te recuerdo by Liliana Valenzuela's translation of my words. And then here it is in English. And this is, my books are always translated for the most part by Liliana, a poet and fiction writer that I've known for 30 years, very close friend and faithful to travel, who has traveled faithfully alongside me and been able to put aside her work to translate mine. So I'm very grateful for that. But this was especially important that it came up because the characters are speaking to me in their native languages or in their mishmash, in Paula's case. In real life, the women I met in Paris were speaking to me in Spanish. In real life, they were two Spanish speakers, not an Italian and a Spanish speaker. So the story came to me, with their voices in Castellano. And, I was communicating to them in Spanish too. So the real title of the story and the birth of it is in Spanish in my head. And it was called and always will be in my head, known as Martita te recuerdo. That was its title until my editor said, oh, we can't have that. You got to change the title for an English-speaking audience. I said, okay, I'll just translate it. Martita, I remember you. But that's not the reason why it's getting published like that, but that's the reason why I'm happy it's getting published. To answer the question, it's a very short book, and rather than make two short books, they put it together as one, and I hope people will be very happy that they can hear the characters speaking in the original language. You can also pick up the audio where I read both the English and the Spanish versions, and two actors help me with Martita and Paula's voices. So it's really beautiful sounding like a radio drama. Please catch the audio. Someone wants to know, Dorothy, what are you working on?
Oh, God. Well, I'm actually working on a novel. There are 3 novels in a box. Well, actually 2 boxes that I put aside and had started a new novel that I was going great guns on before the pandemic hit. And everybody shut down and everybody left town. I couldn't get in touch with my editor. And truthfully, I kind of stalled in the novel, but I've taken it up again in the last few weeks, and I'm starting again. It's a very complicated story, which is in a way about time travel, but then again not. It's a woman traveling back in her own life. But it's novels are too, especially novels that are in the middle of writing. You know this, Sandra. It's very hard to talk about them, and it's not about the plot so much, although this is probably more a plot-driven novel than I've written before in any way because the world changed.
But don't you think when you're writing anything, you don't know what it is you're writing until you get to the end?
No,
No,
no.
you do know?
Although I
never
do
know.
know, I sometimes know the difference between poetry and narration, but no, I never know where we're going until we are at least a good start there, good on the way.
Me too. I feel like I'm just like a blind woman going through a maze and
Yeah.
going through these corridors and backing up and searching for something, but I don't know what that thing is until I found it. And that's when I've got the ending.
I don't have, well, I vaguely have a sense of the ending, but I don't really have the ending yet. But boy, have I got a middle.
Oh, good. You know what? That's all it takes. I never write in linear order. I just do the little
No, neither do I
buttons.
really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the way.
You write the scary, exciting parts, and then you go back and yes, yes.
Otherwise, you'd give up, right?
Well, I don't know about give up, but put it in a box. I put everything in a box. There was one woman wanting to know how to encourage young women to start writing, and how to get that habit. And it is a habit. You have to create the habit. You know this because I saw your stacks of notebooks. Just oh, I could. I can't turn this little laptop around. The entire wall to my left is notebooks, piles and piles of notebooks of poems and stories, and manuscripts that I've set aside for one reason or another, but I keep going back to.
See, I didn't keep my notebooks when I moved to Mexico. I just said if I open them and start looking through them, this would happen. I'd say, well, let me see if I'm going to, I won't give them up. I'll just keep, I'll just never give up my archives. So I had to just say, okay, I don't know what's in them. A lot of the archives I had not opened since I put my pen back in its estuche. I want to say the word in Spanish, in its case. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I need to go to my archives and see what I wrote. I was just afraid if I opened the notebooks, I would never get done organizing my life.
And is your life organized now?
Well, that article I had to do by the book asked me what was on my bedside. And I don't know about
Yeah.
you, but since the pandemic began, I found it very hard to comb the back of my head, sometimes the front of my head. I found it really hard to change out of wearing pajamas. Sometimes I'd get out of pajamas and put clean pajamas, or to make the bed, or to put the broom away, or put anything away. So I had these stacks of books on my bedside since the pandemic. And that question, what's on your bedside, caused me to do some housekeeping in my bedroom. So, yes. And your book was there.
Oh, stacks and stacks.
Yeah, it was so earth-shattering to get a question like, what's on your bedside? Because suddenly I had to clean my bedside tables, which, no one could touch. And I just decided I'm going to redecorate. So thanks to that question, I'm cleaned my room, redecorating, got rid of things, got furniture out from the living room, just kind of like, I haven't moved. So you know how it is when you don't move, things just kind of fall like layers of Tenochtitlan, one age, one era on top of another. You need to move to do really thorough house cleaning.
No, I'm never house cleaning again, and I'm never moving.
But you just said you have boxes in case the fire gets too near you, then you're going to have to get out of.
Well, but this was literally a year ago, last August, September. We packed everything up in boxes. And then when we came back, we just unloaded them into the barn. So the boxes are sitting out there.
Well, that's dangerous.
I know. Not as dangerous as dry lightning, but yes.
Yeah. Maybe you need to put them in some fireproof storage unit.
No, if they're meant to go, they're meant to go.
Wow, that's how you feel. That's how you feel.
My son's girlfriend or ex-girlfriend, she got married to someone else recently. She'll take care of it for me.
And why do you think that she will, not your son?
Because she's a writer. Because she's a baby writer. And baby writers um, they're much, especially baby writers, are much more reverent about other people's notebooks than I am about my own notebooks.
When I was younger, when the decade that I called when I was a cloud, and I didn't
Yeah.
have a permanent home, and I was living like 6 months teaching position here, a quarter here, just floating around with my belongings in a car and two cats. I
Yeah.
remember that I felt upset that I had these terribly revealing papers in my mother's garage in Chicago. So
Uh,
one day I came home and I put them all in the Weber kettle and I burned them.
oh my God.
Yeah, yeah, it was parts of my life that I didn't wasn't proud of. And when my friend, the critic Tame Mariana Rebolledo, found out, she said, "Don't you ever do that again. And if you need to store anything, put it in my garden shed." So for many years, Tadiana Rebolledo's garden shed housed, all the tools for gardening and my files when I was homeless. So I'm always grateful that she and her husband Michael knew the importance of these papers and kept them for me for a long time. I want to acknowledge that, say thanks
A true
now.
friend. Yeah.
Yeah, true friend. There were some items that I'm not ashamed about burning, and those early, papers from undergraduate years and some episodes in my undergraduate years that I'm not proud of. And anyway, I want to be able to tell that story, my version. So I don't mind
See,
that I burned
I
it.
had the great good fortune of being a baby lesbian feminist in early lesbian feminism. And frankly, there was nothing that I was that ashamed of. And I had a long list of sins, but having left the Baptist church, I didn't think too much about that. I wanted to be outrageous. Do you understand that? You would.
I get it. I get it. But how does one, like, my new book of poetry is about moving to that stage where you have no shame. And I think
Yeah.
for women, like, we come into this world with that shame. We're born with it. And it's indoctrinated into us with our
Yeah.
culture and our religion. And to me, I feel like I've been struggling all the 66 years that I've been conscious of it, of, of being, wanting to rebirth myself and to
Mm.
live without someone evaluating me.
I think I was reborn on the pool table in the radical lesbian feminist household in Tallahassee, Florida, because I definitely had sex on that pool table. But I think the most outrageous thing was, and this, you will understand some of this, is that lying on that pool table and reciting poetry out loud to the other women in this collective, and we were all bad poets, and we were all trying poems out on each other. And I have this real strong memory of lying back on that pool table and pushing my hips up and feeling like it wasn't just the words that were coming out of me, it was some power of light and air. Do you know what I'm talking
I
about? Poetry
do.
can do. Yeah. And
Yeah.
from that moment, it was like, okay, no shame, no shame.
Well, I think that the poetry and the, which is to me the most honest part of who we
Yeah,
are.
yeah,
Uh, and the fiction and all the writing comes from that universe, that uterus universe, or that female part of us, the universe, that inkwell, that is part of
yeah.
our reproductive organs. I really feel that when I'm writing at my best, I'm birthing something. I, who had no children, I feel like, and I don't see it as any dirty writing. I see it as pure writing, and as pure as a baby can be. And I want to write always from that place, without
It's a good place.
vergüenza, without, like, this is coming from me. It's my truth. It's a place where I can say anything and no one can make me feel bad. And we don't have that in the world, except
I
unless,
think
you're a radical lesbian household. I didn't grow up and become a baby writer. I did have a lot of lesbian friends, but I didn't have that household that you're talking about. I didn't have that pool table.
well, I I didn't think of. It's very hard to talk to young people now at 72, remembering myself at 22 in that radical lesbian feminist coalition and those incredibly long, tedious, but necessary battles that we had to fight to get any of our work out at all. I've worked for so many little magazines and so many little presses, and often there were painful, debilitating struggles with the other women in those organizations, and some of whom found, I can remember being told that I was over the top. And I was like, I don't feel like I've even touched my top yet. And that struggle, because I did not want to harm the other women that I loved and worked with. And I felt, as much as I have fought all my life not to feel ashamed, I was raised in the Baptist church. I was a bastard. I was raped at 11. If I had been able to have a child, I would have had one. It's the gift of being sterile, which is another gift my stepfather gave me, but he gave it to me at 5, So there's a part of me that, while I have this world of shame, is also that voice that said he gave it to me at 5. And I am outraged for that baby, that child, and outraged for the part of me that is still that child. And trying.
Are you still writing from that place of outrage?
Oh, she's always there. She's always there. I just have this elaborate sense of humor that tends to make it a little easier to be in the world. If I didn't have a sense of humor, my shotgun would have a firing pin, and it don't. So.
Wow. I am always so inspired and amazed listening to you, because your life is so different from mine.
I don't know.
I feel like we're related.
I don't know. When I came down and we did that program with the Jumpstart, I felt so different, very different. White girl among brown girls, but among my people, all the poets and all the activists and, people working on both abortion rights and publishing. And it just felt to me like we were part of a nation.
Yeah, we are. And I think that takes me back to Martita, because I felt that traveling with all the women that we were part of, like the Republic of Women, or the Republic of Poor People, or the Republic of Immigrants, or the Republic of whatever, that is outsider. And, here we are in 2021, and we're seeing abortion, the issue in Mexico as well as the United States. We're seeing small presses disappear. I was just talking about like a dozen young Latino writers who came out with one book back in the 80s or 90s, and haven't heard from them since. Where are these lost sisters? And, it's almost as if we're spinning backwards instead of spinning forwards when it comes to women's lives and women's empowerment. No?
I'm not sure about that at all. Because I know so many young writers, particularly young women writers, and lots of young lesbians, but God, who can tell anymore? Everybody's hard to pin down in any case. But young writers who are finding their own way, and they have so many more, because there's so much online presence, there's so many blogs and self-publishing ventures. They used to say that publishing were the gatekeepers. Well, the gates are wide open. It's just that it's hard to survive as a writer and reach your community when the world is so scattered and hard to connect with. But that's exactly what it was like when I was a baby writer. When I was 20 and writing bad poetry. You don't know from bad poetry, girl.
Wow.
But, I think that's one of the things I like about this little book, this sense of a community of writers trading work and encouraging each other. And I'd always had that fantasy that that's what Paris was like. It would not have been like that for me because I couldn't speak French, and I would have been silly, which I was when I went there. I was completely silly and, drunk on being in Paris.
Well, I think that's what it is for Karina too, Karina is also there because she thinks it's going to make her a writer. Unlike me, I didn't think going to Paris. By then, I had an NEA grant. I was older. I didn't go there to get validated. But Corina is younger, and she thinks going to Paris is going to, she can name herself a writer. I remember that insecurity when I was 20, and how I felt like giggling when people would ask me at the university, what are you? Are you a fiction writer or are you a poet? And I would say, I'm a poet, and then laugh because it sounded like I was saying, I'm a bruja, witch. Yeah.
Well, I was a witch and I belonged to a coven. So people
Good
are
for
asking.
you.
The reason we're using the phone is because we're not being able to have sound over the online. So that's the reason we're talking on the phone and talking on screen. So if you're confused, we're confused too, but we're doing it anyway.
Yeah, we had technical issues and we're trying to do the best we can. And we can see each other, yes.
Yes, and it's pretty much been the story of our life, hasn't it? Our lives. Yes.
And the funny thing is that people don't realize that I don't talk to you on the phone. Why don't I talk to you on the phone? And there's a real reason why. The writers that I'm closest to and admire the most, I see them maybe, if we're lucky, like once every 10 years, because I respect that you're working. And I respect that when you finish working, the last thing you want to do is talk on the phone. It's exhausting work. And, it's like being in the coal mines. You go down into some painful part of yourself or some joyous part or both, and then you come up to earth and you don't want to be on the phone. So that's one of the reasons. And another is I don't like to do brief email messages to the writers that are most magnificent in the world, because they deserve real letters that take time, that you might make beautiful writing for them as a gift, and an email doesn't cut it.
I think you should let go of some of that, baby. I think because there's always reasons not to get on the phone or not to do something, and you need more reasons to do it.
You're right.
I would love to hear from you anytime.
Oh, that's great. I'm happy to hear that. And likewise, I'll tell you when's a good time for you to call me, because I'm on this funny work time, and then there are these gaps in my day when I say, "Ooh, who can I call in California that's still awake?" But now I've got a puppy, so I have really weird schedule. I wake up at like 3, and then I go back to sleep and wake up at 6:30, and then I go back to sleep and wake up at 8:30 because of the puppy. But so that otherwise, I would say, I'm a late person. But since the puppy arrived, I go to sleep by 11:30.
See, I have a big dog, and if I'm not up by 6:30, he comes in the bedroom very quietly, sneaks over to my side of the bed, and puts his cold, wet nose on my face, which is like, "Get up, bitch! I'm hungry."
That's right. That's what my puppy does too. She starts whining. She wants to come down for a snack. Yeah, the dogs wake us up. That's true. Okay, somebody was asking questions. So should we answer some of these questions here?
United Fruit Company.
They want to see the puppy and the big dog. You can see my dogs on my Instagram. I post them a lot. So you can, if you'd like to see my animals. Right now I have a dog sitter so that they won't interrupt this conversation. Here's a question. What advice would you give young teen writers who want to tell their story, create a world of stories? What would you have liked to hear as a budding writer, as a young adult, to encourage you in this craft? Dorothy?
Well, I know one of the tricks I used when I was a baby writer, and it was tell 2 lies for every true thing on the page, because that gave me permission to play with what was true and what was not. And I don't know, I might have heard that from someone else, and it stuck with me. But
I like that, because sometimes we're shackled to memory, and it doesn't allow us to make those imaginative leaps. That's a good rule. Yeah.
Good.
The one I use is write about the things you wish you could forget.
Yeah. Tell the story you're afraid to tell. I use that one.
Mhm.
but the things I'm afraid of are changing all the time. And, now I have this semi-grown child. My son is 29 years old.
What?
How did that happen? I kept feeding him. That was the problem.
Well,
Yeah.
are your books older than he is?
Yes, some of
Well, there you go.
them. I need to do another book of poetry, though. But I don't,
Please write another book of poetry. I love your poetry.
except that I think of myself as writing doggerel, which I honor doggerel, which is I love to play with language. You know this because you do the same thing. Um, but it never seems to me quite what I intended. I've got to work on that because clearly I've got some fear happening there.
Well,
Clearly.
you're the one that got me to get back. You would say this every time I saw you, or every 10 years I saw you, you'd say, write some poetry, get back to your poetry. And so I'm going to say that to you too.
All right, all right. We can
Okay?
send each other messages on the phone or by email.
Okay.
I
All right.
want
Any
this
other?
book. I want
What?
people to read this book. I want people to pick this book up and see again the energy and power of being a young writer among other people who are also artists and writers, because that's the strength of it for me.
Wow. Wow. I love how every interviewer sees something different, and you saw your younger self and the community of women that you were with.
Well, not just
That's
women.
cool. Mm.
I used to hang out with some interesting gay men. I didn't hang out much with heterosexual, although wait, I should acknowledge that when I was early in my radical lesbian feminist activism, I knew a lot of bookstore people who were straight boys. You know those
Hmm.
skinny guys with the big glasses and very
Yeah.
shy,
Yeah.
and I loved them. They were some of them were poets and they were afraid, and it was wonderful to
Yeah.
hang out with them. So not just lesbians and not just women and not just Southerners. God save me, them Yankees could talk.
And do you feel at home in California these days? Such a, my friends from California, a lot of them have moved or thought of moving because of all the climate problems.
I'm scared, but I'm scared. I've been scared most of my life, and that hasn't stopped me. So it's of a piece. It's a
Mm.
little. I haven't felt at home since my family ran away from South Carolina when I was 12. We ran off in the dead of night, being chased by the county sheriff. So no, I don't feel particularly at home. But I live in what used to be a working class community. But people keep buying the houses around us, tearing them down and building big houses, and they all, drive really nice cars, and it's a little scary. The way the neighborhoods are changing so fast. But I have a series of close neighbors who were here when we moved here, and some of them are getting quite elderly, but we're all of a piece. A
Wow, I
lot
thought
of
that only happened, and I thought that only happened to the barrio. I didn't realize it happened in the country too.
in small towns in Northern California, yeah.
Wow.
We're not. You go further south to Marin for the upper class people. Although, God knows, there's some rich people moving in up here. They're scary. They put in
Hmm.
huge pools, and
Someone saying same thing is happening in Florida.
yeah, well, I left Florida so long ago. I'm not going back there. I've got two
Hmm.
sisters there, and they can come visit me.
There you go. Somebody wants to know, Dorothy, your characters are so strong and vivid, and your use of language is so powerful. Can you talk a bit about this?
The thing I do as a writer, I write often in the middle of the night, and I tend to walk back and forth and swing my arms in the air. And I find that swinging my arms in the air pushes my voice, and then I can start talking as the people I'm writing. Um, if there are people around, they tend to inhibit me. Um,
Yeah, me too.
so let them go to sleep, and then I can get some work done. I
Yeah,
recommend
I
you
was in a
have to have
terrible
privacy.
mood. Yeah, I was in a terrible mood yesterday because we had a like an army of gardeners come in to work on my garden that has been gone to seed for 8 years. And so we finally had some gardeners. Like the gardener brought a team. And I didn't realize how distressing that was to me. It reminded me when I was living with my 6 brothers and all the noise, the pounding, the climbing up and down the stairs, the hooting and hollering. It made me so upset. I went back to bed and just read a novel. I just felt really upset and angry. And I had to like examine, why are you so angry? And it's just because I felt like my space, not even like I wasn't even going to write yesterday. It was more like my peace of my peace of mind that I need to get ready to talk or to think was interrupted. And it's why I live in such a quiet house with nothing on, no background noise except the wind. And, I felt kind of like prissy, like, oh, you're so delicada. You can't deal with people being in your house. No, I've gotten accustomed to living alone.
I just don't want to answer questions. Don't ask me anything.
Well, that's a good thing to say while people are asking you questions in the chat.
Well,
That's nice.
It's just, I love my son. I love my partner. I love my dog, and I love my neighbors. But I need a lot of quiet time. A
Now,
lot.
does your son live with you and your
Yes,
partner?
yes. He moved
He's at
out for a
home.
while, but then he moved back. So we'll see.
Was he home during the lockdown?
Yeah, yeah. He's been back here for a year and a half. So everything changes and nothing changes at all. You know how that works.
And do you
He's
find that he takes care of you all now?
he does actually. He worries about me. I think I've taken a couple of bad falls and I've torn up my knee, um, and
You've
he's
had
very.
health issues.
I have health issues. Fuck it. Still alive.
Yeah, but you
That's it.
normally don't do these. I want to tell the audience, you don't do these kinds of pláticas, these kinds of conversations. You stop traveling, and you're doing this as a favor to me, I know, and I'm very
Well, I
grateful.
love you.
I
I do it
know.
only with people I love. So there
I
you
feel
go.
very, very lucky. We're all very lucky to have you
We are
here.
lucky to have other writers who understand what we're doing. I think the
Yes.
hardest thing when you're a young writer is that um, you feel inappropriate. You feel like you don't have any right to your own stories. I felt I feel like a secret divulger, and I felt dangerous. And even though I could try really hard to glory in being dangerous, I didn't want to be dangerous to those I loved, and that's a tricky thing, very tricky thing. No, we manage day by day. I miss that having that sense of a strong community behind me. Um, so many of the women that I was an activist with have their own health issues and their own struggles, and that's hard and isolated. So to be
Do
able to
you stay
talk to people I
connected
trust
with this community?
with many, and then again they get back in touch with you. I've just been back in touch with my old friend Lisa Dubin. I hadn't spoken to her in years. Email, they'll show up.
Yeah, me too. Back in the day when I lived in San Antonio, one of the things I looked forward to every year was the Border Book Festival in Mesilla,
uh,
New Mexico. And the way, rather than trying to fly there, we would drive like the 12 hours that it took to drive
yes,
from San
yes,
Antonio. But you always would meet up with great people coming down from northern New Mexico, writers that had
yeah,
been flown in from across the country that were guest speakers. So to me, it was like family reunion. And
yeah.
I felt strengthened and vitalized and creative after those reunions. And on one hand, I'm very glad that Denise is not doing them anymore because she needs to write her own work. Denise Chavez ran it. But on the
Yeah.
other hand, I miss it because that was where I got to see everybody. For me, that was living in San Antonio, Texas, it was a book fair that I looked forward to. And, of course, Macondo was started because I felt
Oh
so
yeah.
lonely in San Antonio that I had to create my own baseball teams, and no one invited me to be on their team. So I just started inviting writers to come, and you
And
came, and
look what it
yeah,
turned into. How marvelous it was.
that's how I was able to survive, because I felt like such an outsider in San Antonio. And I didn't feel close to the other writers. And so I just created my own clubhouse. And you were a part of it. And Elena Poniatowska came, Elena Maria Montes, Luis Rodriguez, Manuel Munoz. So many writers came. And,
Yeah.
we didn't have any money, but you came anyway. That was the great thing, and it's still running on a shoestring, 26 years. So
It's wonderful.
and the wonderful thing about having these Zooms is that we don't have to disturb your health, or make you uncomfortable. Today, you don't have to get on a plane. You can, we have these glitches with technology, but you don't have to hurt yourself physically to get to an airport or sit on a plane, and that was an issue for you. So
It's an issue, but I'll tell you the truth. I miss not being able to sit in a room with baby writers.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I used to go all over the country, was to sit in those rooms. There was one of the people was asking, how do you learn to tell the truth? Is it something you need to do over and over again, like coming out? You learn to tell the truth by being among people who want to hear your truth.
That's right.
And finding those people, and making that community. It was so vital.
Well, when I came back from living the seed of this story that became Martita, I remember you. The problem I had was that no one in my family wanted to hear my stories. They would ask, how did your trip go, but not wait around to hear the answer. And I thought, what am I going to do with these stories that I've lived and people I've met? So, I don't have children. I don't have grandchildren. Writing them down and sharing them at Macondo with other writers, and now publishing them and sharing them with you and readers. That's what I do with those stories, because nobody in my family was willing to listen. So you all have become my family. I'm sorry?
You'd get arguments about your version of the story you were telling.
That's right.
My story, write your own.
That's absolutely right. Okay, I'm looking to see if there's some questions here.
Your collaboration.
All right. I didn't do a collaboration with Nivea Gonzalez, Robin. She was one of several artists that did one of the early book covers of my early editions of my book. I didn't know her that well. Like, I knew her to say hi, but basically I just put a call out to writers that I knew in Texas, and said, send your work to my publisher and see who they pick up. I didn't want to, get in the way of playing favorites. And she was very professional about sending her portfolio, and they liked her work. So that's how that came about. I don't think that's a collaboration. A collaboration would mean that, she and I were involved in conception, but it wasn't like that. Okay. And are you, Dorothy, coming to the Miami Book Fair anytime soon?
Right now, I don't have any plans to travel at all. We'll see. I just can't predict what's coming.
All right. Well, I'm supposed to be at the Miami Book Fair, and for those in positions that can make these decisions, I have health issues too, and I'm high risk because of issues I've had with bronchitis. So can you please get me an outdoor venue? Organizers, get me a tent and require everyone who comes to wear a mask, because I don't want my fans to kill me. So please, we'll put that out there too. Yeah, okay?
I've done the Miami Book Fair a couple of times. It's wonderful.
I love the Miami Book Fair. I thought of moving to Miami when I was hunting for a city. When I gave up San Antonio. Miami, I just love it. I love downtown Miami. I like the food. I like those little storefronts that look like Cuba, where you can get coffee and these little flat steaks with arroz blanco. Yum, yum, yum. And I like going to the Ojitos Are Us stores downtown that sell little bracelets and necklaces that have glass eyes to keep away the evil eye. And I like bagels, and I like all the Jewish delis, and I like the architecture. See, I just love coming to Miami. So I'm looking forward to being there.
You will love it. They're really good.
Yes, and I have friends that live there. I've had I think one of the most magical moments I ever had was when I met my first Cubano friends. and among them Richard Blanco. I had met him one night, and they took me to like some club, and it was packed, and there was a singer named Albita. I didn't know who she was, and it was the only time I'd ever been to a club where they asked me to sit on the bar. They didn't tell me get down off the bar. They put me there because there were no seats, and there was a guy smoking big cigars, and like they let you smoke cigars, which I love. So I got to hear Albita. I got to smoke cigars. I got to sit on the bar without someone saying "Get out of there," you know. And then I went to eat at the Cafe Versailles afterwards and ate some amazing food. So I always remember that night that I met Richard Blanco and all. And then we had this great conversation about how we were afraid of Cubanos, and Cubanos had this conversation about how they were afraid of us because of the way we spoke Spanish. It was just so revelatory and wonderful. Loved it. Love it still.
You will love it.
Yeah. And then my friend Ruth Behar is there, and Nelly Galan, Richard
Ruth, I miss
Blanco.
Ruth.
Yeah, and Jan Beatty's going to be there. Are you sure you don't want to come?
Honey, I'm not allowed to travel right now.
All right.
I've got some major health issues happening, and I just
all
got to
right.
be.
Maybe when I go to Tucson next year for the presentation of my poetry book, you might feel like that's not so far.
I might could talk my girlfriend into driving to Tucson. We'll see.
Oh, that would be so wonderful. That'd be so wonderful because I promised Tucson that I would come next fall and read my new poetry. So I would love that. Maybe you'll have some new. Maybe you'll have some.
Keep
new
in touch. We're getting toward the end of this, I think.
Let's see if there's any final things. We did start late, so I think we can go for a few more questions. Oh, there's a question here. Is there a virtual portion of the fair, I'm assuming they mean Miami, that Dorothy Allison might be able to join?
We'll see. It's certainly we can ask them.
Oh, I would just think that would be the greatest.
Well, I'm adjusting to the whole Zooming experience. I even taught a class by Zoom, although that was awkward, difficult. It's hard when you got 30 faces on the screen.
Well, Lisette, our host, is saying always an open door for Dorothy. So there you go.
Oh, we'll see what we can do.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Baby.
All right, now, Lisette, do you want us to answer more questions? Because we started late.
It's all going to be virtual for a while.
Okay, I'm looking to see if there's anything we need to answer. Okay, well, I guess I just want to remind everybody, please buy this book and buy the audio and listen to me read it in English and Spanish. And,
oh, how wonderful.
Yeah, and Dorothy, just you're telling me that this is, the nice, kind things you said about my story. That means everything. Because you're like the writer I want to grow up to be one day. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're just a child.
Just a child. Well, Lisette says we can stop or keep going as you wish. How are you feeling, my dear? Want one more question? Maybe one more question.
I made a casserole they can eat.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We're down to twice a week casseroles here.
Oh, wow. They want to know if the book is out on audio. Yes. The release date was September 7th. Is that Tuesday? The same as the book. So, yes, it is out on audio. You can get it.
Did you do the audio or did someone else?
I did.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah, it was really hard. I have a funny story about that. I practiced the audio so much, with a director. This is the first time I practiced, because usually I know how to read my work, but I had to practice because there were all these French words that I've only read. I don't know how to say them out loud. And then I had to sound like Argentines, and I had to sound like Paula, who talks, in a very different way than the other two women. So I had to practice. I practiced and practiced. And my protagonist, her nickname is Pufina. You know that. And I was saying it so much and practicing it for a couple of weeks. And Eunice, who cooks, is my cook. She comes a couple of days to cook because I'm a terrible cook. And she comes and she hears me on the other side of this wall is the kitchen. There's windows here. She could hear me sitting here. I'm on my dining room table. This is where I work. And I was practicing and practicing. And she heard me say Pufina so many times that the new puppy that I was telling you about, its name was Leopoldine. I know, Victor Hugo's daughter. But anyway, her name was Leopoldine. But Eunice heard Pufina so many times, she started calling the dog Pufina. So now the dog is named Pufina.
It's a great name.
It's much better than Leopoldine, right?
I don't know.
So Pufina is in my life the same time as the book, and it's wonderful. I'm very glad that I don't think there's any other dog yet that has been named Pufina, but perhaps we'll start a trend.
Good. Lisette, did you have any other questions?
I just wanted to tell you all that I am so proud to have been part of tonight's event, even in my own small way. Sandra and Dorothy, you both inspired me. You've made me feel at home in your pages since I first read your work 30 years ago, both of you. So thank you all for all you've done, for all you've written, for all you continue to do. Thank you for speaking truth to power all the time. I mean, this couldn't have been a better conversation for all of us to eavesdrop on. So people out there, buy these books. If you've read them all, like I have, buy copies for your friends and for your friends' daughters and your friends' sons, because the boys and the men need to read these ladies' books too. And with that, I leave you.
Thank you. And follow me on Instagram if you'd like to see Puppy Pufina. I photograph her a lot. She's upstairs held captive so that she wouldn't interrupt this conversation. And I just want to thank Books and Books. You've always blessed me with such wonderful venues to speak and opportunities to speak. I love coming to Miami. I wish I could come every year, but I don't write that often. But this year I have a book this year and next year. And you've given me such a gift by allowing me to invite a writer I admire so much and esteem and look up to and am inspired by. And Dorothy, if you don't know it by now, you're just the greatest. You're the greatest. So thank you so much.
You're my baby.
Thank you. Thank you both again.
But I love you.
I'm going to start bothering you now and take you up that I can call you. I always feel like out of respect, but what I will do is text you. May I call and make an appointment? How's that?
Well, you've got the number.
I have it. And I'm also going to ask the Virgen de Guadalupe to protect and take care of you and that barn filled with all your stories.
Oh, God. Yeah. We're on alert for dry lightning, so I'm a little nervous, but you can only do what you can do.
Everybody out there, we want to meditate and protect Dorothy and her archives, her papers, so just send some good energy to keep you safe. How's that?
Thank you, baby. Thank you all.
You're welcome.
All of
Thank
us.
you, Lizette. Thank you,
us.
Books and Books. Thank you, all of
Sandra.
you out there. And if this is recorded, I want a copy.
It is. It will be automatically available on the same link that you all visited, that you all came through. And you feel free to email it, post it on Facebook, Instagram, all your socials, send it to your friends. This is wonderful.
Thank you, mujeres.
Thank you.
Gracias.